Lauren, I want you to give us a little bit of intro of who you are. Obviously, I know who you are. I wouldn't say grew up together, but we spent a lot of time together
Yeah,
when we were in our teens. Introduce
yeah,
yourself, and I'd love to hear about how you got into dance.
yeah, sure. Okay, so hi, I'm Lauren Kiddo. I
Hello.
am obviously, as Brock has just said, a professional dancer. I'm also an S&C coach for professional dancers. So they're the two worlds I kind of jot between. I've been dancing professionally probably for about 15 years now,
Cool.
and slowly transitioning probably more so now into a coach phase. So being able to coach holistic care for dancers, which is pretty cool. And then I got into dance purely because I grew up in a creative family. So my dad used to be in a band, play music, whatnot. So we were
Did
really
he?
into, yeah, fully in a band with an afro in the 70s,
I did
like
not
the
know that.
full bag. Yeah, like flared jeans, the whole bit.
Yes. Oh
And he's
man.
super gifted. So our parents always put us through like besides the general sports that parents put you through if they can afford it, put us through like creative art stuff. So I started out in gymnastics and then went through a whole bunch of different things like tap dancing and ballroom and then went to martial arts, weirdly enough. And then eventually I found hip hop and that's it. I've been there ever since. So I've been dancing since I was 10 and that's kind of how I got into it. Yeah.
And what made you stick with hip hop dancing?
Uh, I think it was because I really enjoyed the music and the community that it had. It was a little bit more different. It was different than the other things because I resonated with the music probably because of Michael Jackson. I was like absolutely obsessed with Michael Jackson at the time.
Yeah.
I know that's like super controversial now that we know things.
Yeah.
But at the time I didn't know.
I think many people
um,
were obsessed with Michael Jackson.
yeah, yeah. And so I think I fell in love with the way that hip hop was produced, the way it made me feel. Even the dance moves itself that represented the music was really different. And I think, yeah, there was just some sort of part of me where the talent matched the criteria and it worked. So I remained in hip hop. The community of people that I met in hip hop were really awesome. I was lucky enough to be trained by specialists at an early age, so people that specialized in styles in hip hop. Um, and yeah, I just somehow remained in it because of that, the love of it, I suppose, which sounds so cliche, but is super real.
So, how do you go from just doing it for the love of it to turning it into a career? Because I feel like that's an obstacle that many people want to overcome.
Totally. And all too real because of where we live. There seems to be very minimal pathways to get there. Um, Honestly, hard work and connections are the main two things that I always preach because literally, like the conversations we've just been having, you and I feel like I had talent enough to get me into the industry, but if you don't work for it, you're going to lose your spot pretty quickly. So I just made sure that from day dot, as soon as I figured out that I loved it and I wanted to pursue it as a career, I just did what I could and worked on the things I could control, which is the hours I could train in. So I'd make sure I was always in the studio working really hard or I was researching new things that were coming out in terms of like trending moves or I was looking at ways that I could promote myself, whether it be in the studio or online. Um, and so that, in terms of hard work, really paid off for me because then people saw that product whenever I was in another city or in another at another event, or at like Parachute, weirdly enough, like things like that. Lol.
Parachute Festival, yeah.
Yeah, Parachute Festival. The way I had connections at that festival because I've just been like dancing and then talking to everyone else at that
Yeah.
same festival. Um, and then, yeah, obviously leaning into the fact that networking is really important. So being able to chat to different people, reach out and just put your foot out and make something of it and not be scared or insecure. Or, I mean, like, obviously you can be scared and insecure, but trying to push past that so that you can make something of the thing that you love. So hard work and connecting are the most important things I'd say to try and get into it. And then speaking a little bit probably more practically, there are agencies if you are in New Zealand and in Australia. I know there's agencies in New Zealand and Australia that specifically work with young talent to try and help them into the professional realm. So you can just look up online on Google what are the dance agencies, and then send a message through, submit your info and what you do, and
Mm.
then go from there, get an agent to represent you and try and get you on the block. That's a really practical way of doing it as well.
And how do you network without being cheesy? Because I feel like it can be a
Yeah.
very awkward, like you you're kind of talking to people to get an outcome, but you don't want to come
Yes.
across like that. And maybe you don't even want to be that person, but if you
Yeah.
don't do that, if you don't have the conversation and just say, "Hey, nice to meet you. I'm Lauren. I
Yeah.
dance." If you don't do that, then maybe nothing will happen. If you do, maybe something will happen. So you need to play to those odds. What's your advice for
100%.
trying to do that in a authentic way?
Yeah, that's really true. I mean, and you literally just said it yourself. I feel like I've always lived by the whole, what is it? You won't know unless you try. Like, I think you win some, you lose some. And when you realize and embrace the fact that some will work and some don't, then it makes it easier to just approach every situation with a little bit of fearlessness and just go for it and see what happens. So that obviously always helps in approaching conversations. I think with the way that I've been brought up and the values that I have and prioritize, I will always prioritize relationship over agenda. So even if I know that someone's going to serve me in the future or that they can help me in terms of career, I'll always be super interested in them first. Like, to me, it's really important to be like, okay, I know for a fact that you do these sorts of things and that you could potentially help me out in the future, but what you do is really interesting and who you are is really interesting. So I'd actually just love to know about that first. And I feel like if you genuinely just try and build a genuine relationship, then good things come from that no matter what, or they don't, and then you've just got a cool friend. Like,
Yeah,
there's no
no
harm in
loss.
yeah, there's no harm in that being the case as well. And at least again, you can walk away being like, at least I tried, you know. But looking at it from a perspective of being like, they're just another human being, and I'd love to probably build relationship first and foremost is the easiest way of me being authentic in a conversation. There has been times where I've genuinely had to just be like, there is no way that you and I are going to relate on any subject here, but I know for a fact I need to talk to you for the sake of this job or because it's in my contract or whatever. And it's been awkward, and then I've walked away being like, man, I just sounded like an absolute ick, but whatever. Like,
Yeah,
that's okay. Now I know. Like,
yeah, exactly. And I think it comes down to, so what we were talking about before. So when I was fresh in Auckland, I moved from
yeah,
Christchurch and I was in Auckland trying to build my personal training business. I was at the gym.
yeah,
I had to go and talk to clients to build my personal training business because I
totally,
had no money and I had rent coming out that week with no income. And
totally.
the income was the client. So like this is kind of like, well, maybe this isn't networking, but it kind of is within a gym. I had to
It
talk
is. It
to
is networking. Yeah,
yeah. So my strategy to build my clients was a very, very simple one, probably
yeah,
very average, but it worked. And all I did was introduce myself to people on the gym floor, right?
yeah,
So I'll just say,
yeah,
"Hey, my name's Brock," and they'll be like, "Oh, hey," and they'll be like, "Who are you?" And I'm like, "Oh,
yeah.
I'm a new personal trainer." And sometimes they're like, "Okay, nice to meet you," and I was like, "Yeah, nice to meet you too. Bye." And then I would just leave them. And I would just
Yeah,
walk around the gym and pretend to be busy putting weights away, cleaning and stuff until I was busy enough to have clients.
a
But
hundred
it
percent.
started, like you said, relationship first and then
Yeah,
business or potential business
yeah,
after. And I think when you come from that
yeah.
position, it feels less slimy for the other person.
Yeah, it makes it easier to have the conversation. There's
Yeah.
probably also practical ways for those that aren't sociable, or like I would say that I'm both extrovert and introvert. So in the right setting, I can be like firing away in conversation, but then in other settings, I'm like in the corner. But I feel like for those that are probably more introverted and don't have the like personable skills or social skills to step out and try that, there are ways that you can like, this sounds crazy, but you can script it if you're trying to specifically work on connecting. So
Yeah.
like you said, go in and be like, okay, I'm going to have 3 questions off the bat, and those 3 questions will lead me to more. Like, all you need to worry about is, again, just being like, hi, my name's Lauren. What's your name? And then the next question literally would be like, oh, so what do you do? Like, what are you doing here? And then all of a sudden it's away. And then you're talking about the next thing and you're talking about the next thing. And so even just having a few things that you can like go into the conversation with. So you're like, if you aren't that way inclined, you're feeling a little bit more locked and loaded with some tools in the kit.
Yeah, I had that in the gym. I had, what is your name? What are
Yeah.
you trying to achieve in the gym?
Yeah.
Do you want any help with it?
Yes.
Which is quite
Absolutely.
forward, but sometimes on the gym floor, I didn't have much time. You know, they're
Yeah.
busy, they're working out, they're like, piss off, I'm in my rest period. And,
Yeah.
sometimes you have to be really bold. And this was hard for me initially, but like, even going up to people on cardio machines, like, while they're like walking and stuff, and you're like,
Yeah.
hey, because for me, it was like the next level of talking to people on the gym floor.
Yeah.
Because often people that are doing cardio,
Yeah.
and this is a tip for any personal trainers out there, are there because they are scared to do anything else. If they just stay there all day.
100%.
And
Yeah.
I got that tip from one of the personal trainers that I was learning from at the time, one of the mentors for the personal trainers at City Fitness
Yeah.
on Queen Street. And he was like, most of them are there not by choice, but because they feel like they have to be there because they don't know what else to do. So then
Totally.
I would come through, hey, what's your name? What are you
Yeah.
trying to achieve in the gym? Oh, I want to build
Yes.
muscle and lose fat. Okay. And then I'm like, well, it's going to be quite hard to build muscle on this treadmill. Have you thought about doing this and that? Would you like
Yeah.
help with that? And then it would,
Yeah.
go through that, da, 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 da. And sometimes it would lead to, oh, okay, so, do you do personal training? Maybe we can start working together. Or else I'll just
Totally.
leave them with that piece of information and then leave them later
And then
on.
it's there.
Yeah,
At
but
least.
yeah, and then maybe 1 week, 2 week, 3 weeks, a month later, they're like, oh, that rock guy was pretty nice. And then that's
Yeah.
kind of how I kind
He
of
was pretty buff. He looks
kind of
like he
built
knows
it.
what he's talking about.
Yeah. Yeah, so it was it was really cool. And I think that making it basic like that, those 3 questions, or having
Yeah.
certain things in your head so you don't feel like you're fumbling over your words, which is very common at the
Totally.
start,
Yeah.
then you can actually kind of get through to people.
Yeah.
What do you think was the biggest pinch me moment from your dancing career?
Yeah, pinch me. So with like the 2 areas of dance that I work in are professional dancing, so backup dancing and all the other things that encompass that, and then tutoring and choreographing for things or artists or whatever. So they're both quite different because they require different things. But in like the tutoring, choreographing side of things, which I'd probably lean more towards because of what I value, like in terms of helping people out, there's been a lot of pinch me moments where like you're tutoring someone and a student in a class is, you see something click in their head and they all of a sudden got everything that you've just given them tip wise, or they've worked really hard on their feedback, and then you see it click in the session and you know for a fact they feel really proud of themselves. I'd say moments like that are a super important pinch me moment, because I stand there and I think that's exactly why I do what I do. Like you feeling that moment is why I'm standing here. That's purely the only reason. So tutoring and that sort of thing is like when people feel really, really happy about the work that you've put in for them and they feel invested into and things are changing, is moments that keep me going. And then in terms of the professional realm, as me being a dancer, definitely last year headlining Coachella with BLACKPINK was an absolute pinch me moment. I just, like, even saying that out loud right now, that blows my mind that happened.
And how did that happen? Because that's a massive, that's probably one of the biggest stages
That is
and events
100%.
of the year.
Yes. Yes, 100% one of the biggest stages, especially for a professional dancer. Like,
And in America, coming from New Zealand.
coming from New Zealand. And I think that's why it was probably a pinch me moment too, is because when we were setting up on stage for the first thing, obviously there's like hundreds of thousands of people screaming BLACKPINK and crying and being dramatic, as they should be, it's freaking BLACKPINK. But then I'm like looking to my right and I'm standing next to my friends from New Zealand. It's the fact that I've got all my Kiwi friends with me on a stage like that is wild. But we got into that because, wait, that was the question, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. We got into that through Kyle Tootin. So he has been choreographing for BLACKPINK for years now, through like submission videos. Or just even him just being over in Korea and traveling and whatnot. Submission videos essentially is where a choreographer gets sent music for a song or something from an artist and they get asked to choreograph for that thing. Then the choreographer brings in a certain amount of dancers that they need into a dance studio, and you work for a certain amount of hours or days to try and get through the choreographer's ideas and choreography, and then they send that off to the artists or whoever that it needs to go to, and then all of a sudden the artists are using a certain amount of that choreo in a show or a music video or whatever it looks like. So Kyle's been doing that for years, and I've been working with Kyle for years as well. So there has been that relationship. He got made creative director for BLACKPINK's act at Coachella alongside being a choreographer, which is massive. Like, I can't believe he did a million roles in one. And so then he called me and said, do you want to be a part of my team? Because I'd love to have you. So I was really freaking honored to think that he would even have me on board. So
when I first thought of doing a podcast in 2019, I wrote down everything that I wanted to achieve with the show. And one thing I never wrote down was to spam you with ads of products that I never really used myself. However, I did write down that I wanted to grow it as big as possible and have as many interesting people on the show as I could. To help make that happen, all I ask is that you leave a review on the podcast platform that you're listening to this episode on and share it with someone that you know it will benefit. If you want to support myself even further, and more importantly, your body transformation, and are interested in having me as your coach to help you achieve the results that you just can't seem to achieve on your own, you can visit teamrockashby.com to see what program fits you best. Back to the show.
So was the whole crew from New Zealand?
It was
Was it a
mixed.
mix?
So we had predominantly Kiwis and Australians, and then a few American dancers that he had worked with before on other jobs that were really strong. So he picked a really cool team. But yeah, he basically said to management that if I'm creative directing this, I'd love to have my team on board, like people I know that I've worked with that I can trust and work hard and do the things that they need to do. So they supported that decision, and then so we were able to do Coachella, and then after that we toured the rest of the year with BLACKPINK as well, so it's pretty awesome.
So what does a day look like when you're going around and touring with them?
Yeah,
A day in
it
the life
varies.
of Loren.
The life of Loren. It varies for sure. So obviously we're traveling a lot, we're always on planes or going from airport to venue to hotel, so you're always in different hotels. Rehearsals are long and full on, but still, I feel like in the professional realm, things are obviously regulated. So we still had the normal things that you needed, like breaks and lunches and all the things that you need. And then when it came to like shows, we were obviously training with the BLACKPINK girls whenever they could get into the studio and prep their work. It was full on and fun all in one. Not meaning to rhyme at all. That 100% came out as a freaking lyric. Yeah, it sounds like not as glamorous probably when I say it like that. There are times where you get certain days off, and we were lucky with the tour that we had because we did. And some tours you don't, you're just doing a million shows in like 1 week. That's exaggerating, but whatever. But when you did get time off, we'd obviously explore the country that you're in or the city that you're in and have a little look around. But besides that, you're in the rehearsal room or you're on the stage making sure that things are looking good and doing the things that you need to. Or in the gym if the hotel has a gym.
Yeah. I think it's important though to outline how it's not all glamorous and it's not
Yeah.
all crazy fun. Like you see on, if you're posting on social media, the photos with the stage and the people
Yeah.
out there and all that, like I know you've been posting and stuff like that. It's mostly, traveling. And I'm not talking from experience, like I've lived a crazy
No,
lifestyle,
but from what you've
but
seen.
yeah, it's just, you're just like going from place to place rehearsing, and then you get that 1 hour to 2 hours of glory where you're performing and you're like, oh, this is sick, and then it's back to the hotel or whatever.
Yeah, whatever you're doing. Yeah. I'd say that I lucked out because we had a really good team of people, and with Kyle as like the choreographer, he also runs the agency that I'm a part of. So, which is, I can send through a link if anyone wants that at any point. But because he was on site and we had a team manager that looked after us as well, like there were so many people that were really good at what they did and really good at looking after people. And because they were there, it made the experience so much better and easier, and we felt like we were looked after. And, but there are jobs where people don't have that or are required to do a lot, which I would say is just general part of the industry, but probably not good in terms of health and safety. Training for 1 million hours and then doing 3 shows a week, but also jet lagged, but also in a different time zone, and you're not eating the right amount, like your nutrition's out of whack, your sleep's out of whack. Like it's sometimes when I think about things that some of my friends do, I'm like, that sounds unrealistic, but it's the job.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, you
And
do
like,
what you need to do.
yeah, are you just meant to say no and miss out on that opportunity? It's tricky.
Exactly. Like that's where it comes down to personal preference, right? Like you weigh up your options for yourself. You either suck it up and do what you need to do, or you don't, and that's also okay. Like just don't take the job. Let someone else take the job.
So with touring with Blackpink, was there any, not to get negative or anything, but was there any, because obviously they're massive. They're
So
like
big.
they are massive, and you would have
Massive.
spent a little bit of time with them. Did
Yes.
you ever catch them, let's say, being a bit overwhelmed or being a bit tired or like over it or being a bit like
Yeah, right.
moody or like parts of their life that you saw, like their interactions with fans and stuff like that? Like, did you see some kind of, I don't know, like humanity moments from them where it's like,
Yeah.
oh, this is like a pretty full on,
Yeah,
not burden to carry, but responsibility to have such this
totally.
big following and crazy fans.
Absolutely. I'd say, and it would probably go across the board for anyone that's at that level or higher, or just anyone that's even remotely famous, actually. It would just be so much pressure to have like all eyes on you all the time. There wasn't really any moments where I felt like, oh, like, you know, like,
Yeah.
sort it out.
Yeah.
But maybe because of the way that K-pop stars are trained, because they train from a very young age to be a star. So they're not just thrown into the limelight. They get trained on how to handle themselves, how to look in front of social media. So like they actually know how to go about certain situations in high pressure moments. But there definitely were times where they'd probably turned up looking tired, and fair enough, because even for Coachella, they were still touring at the time that they were doing Coachella. So they'd come to Coachella rehearsals. We had 2 different rehearsals, one in Korea and then one in Las Vegas. They'd come to rehearsals, and then all of a sudden the next day they're on a plane to do another show in like Singapore. And then they'd come back to Vegas and we'd do more rehearsals. Then we'd do Coachella, and then they'd go to another city and do another show, like 2 shows. Then they'd come back to Coachella again. So I always thought, fair enough if you're like even remotely tired, because you're, again, like what you said, only human. Like, how are you functioning? Like, how are you surviving right now? But they were so sweet. The girls were always really keen to be like in rehearsals. We had so many rehearsals with them. And then there was a few of us that stood in as like, what are they called? They're like artist stand-ins. So I was assigned an artist where I learnt her whole entire track for the show. And then
And you performed as her?
And performed as her. So it was actually not her, it was me.
The band? Yeah.
Band, and I've been
I'm
singing.
in Blackpink.
I'm Blackpink, and I sang in Korean.
I wrote all the songs.
I'm Blackpink. Imagine that.
I'm in New
No.
Zealand right now.
Yes, actually in Korea. No, but yeah, we obviously, there's like a few people who stand in. So I stood in as an artist, and I learnt her whole track alongside my own track. So a track is like what you do in a show for you specifically. And then when we have rehearsals, I make sure that one, I know what I'm doing at the same time as what she's doing. So if she's coming, like the shows were different. So she was touring a certain show, and then she'd come back to Coachella and do a completely different show, but to the same songs.
Yeah, right.
So they know like
2 different choreographies for the same song.
different choreographies for the same song, and they were so onto it. Like we would be in a studio and they'd be like just fresh off coming from a show that they know really well, and then would be trying to teach them something different. I mean, I'm not teaching them, it's literally Kyle that's teaching them. But if they needed to know something different, we would show them what it looks like, and they would take seconds to pick it up. And they're like,
Wow.
okay, sweet, so it's that. And then all of a sudden they've got a whole new show in their brain. That they're so professional. Like I don't know how they handled it, and they'd be so sweet to us in the room, like really kind, making sure, like there were points where like maybe if some of us were feeling a bit tired and we needed to run it again, and they'd be like, you guys okay? And we're like, yeah, like that's what we're here to do. It's okay, but thanks for checking in. And then even like we'd have certain times, we were in Korea one time doing, I don't know, it might have been one of the shows, but they shouted us like this, they did like a cool event and brought us out for like Korean barbecue, and then gave out prizes to the whole team, like just spot prizes that they'd specifically bought themselves, like really good ones too, just to say thank you. They like brought us along to birthday parties, and they threw after parties for us, and like they did like more work than probably a lot of artists would do. So they were really cool. Yeah, I can't remember any. They probably had moments behind closed doors where they're probably like, but not in front of us because they're trained to be like super professional.
Yeah.
And there definitely would have been moments where I think they could have felt a little overstimulated by the amount of energy or like dynamics in the room, because obviously you put a whole bunch of really strong creatives in a room and there's going to be a lot of ego. So there were probably moments where they felt a little bit like annoyed or frustrated, but they barely showed it. They'd do the general probably like, come on guys, like let's put it together, but nothing crazy. So they were really good to work for.
And if you look at your biggest performances that you've had, and maybe BLACKPINK at Coachella is like one of them, what do you wish you knew back then that you know now about like big performances and getting ready for them, prepping for them, being on stage?
Yeah.
Like, what's one thing you'd say to that Loren that's doing those performances, having hindsight?
Oh my gosh, hindsight. Honestly, hindsight's such a beautiful thing. It would absolutely be, I wish I knew how to like train myself properly. I wish I knew about overall care back in the day. If I did, that would have changed the way I went about everything, the way I trained, the way I did everything. I think last year, because I was aware of those things, I was more onto it. But prior to that, when I look at the way that I trained for at least the last 10 or 15 years, I wish I'd done things differently. If I could, I'd go back and study earlier.
Yeah.
Or at least find a coach or a mentor that knew something about athletic care and then be trained by them on the side, because again, dance tutors don't really have that knowledge of like physiology or anatomy or what it looks like to look after athletes. So they just do what they can and what they know, which is not really the best all the time. So if I could, I'd go back and be like, learn things right. I always loved fitness. I was always at least in the gym doing resistance work, and I always loved running. And so I'd always be doing like cardio or endurance outside of dance, but it was never intentional. Like I never did progressive overload in the gym. I never knew what I was really doing. It was a mashup of stuff. It wasn't consistent or regular. It was just whatever I could do in the gym that I'd seen or been told by someone. So I feel like that's at least saved me enough in terms of like joint care or like overall general strength with dancing, but it was never really intentional or progressive. So wish I could have known that.
Do you
or
think
paid for a PT?
Yeah. Do you think that dancers are starting to be seen more as athletes now, as opposed to just people that are dancing on stage and you're just a dancer?
Yeah.
Because I feel like that could be a more, I guess, mature way of looking at them and a more sustainable way of looking at them, as opposed to like just dance, go in the studio, dance. But now you can
100%.
talk like, if you consider them as an athlete, you can talk about sleep, you can talk about nutrition,
Absolutely.
maybe supplementation that would help and things like that.
Yes. Yeah. I'd say there's, that's definitely why I start saying that dancers are athletes. It's been something that a lot of people have pushed for a while, purely because of the amount of work that is provided from us physically to get through our jobs. And even what we have to do in a show is quite a lot, depending on what the show is and who the artist is, obviously. But I am definitely starting to say more like, well, approach dancers more as athletes than I am like you're just a dancer in the studio. I think for so long, because it's not a big industry in terms of like, you look at a rugby player like Jono, for instance, there's obviously so much money pumped into rugby, so they have the ability to train the way that they need to train because of what that provides on the other end for business and all that jazz. But for dancers, we just get paid by the artist or whoever needs us for a commercial or a movie or whatever that looks like. So there's not really that much money that's being pumped into dancers. So we're not really seen as athletes. We're seen as like creative artists or in the creative art realm, which we are, but we also obviously cross over into the athletic world if you're doing it at that level professionally or competitively, obviously. But if you're just going to like dance classes here and there during the week, it's probably more just a hobby or trying to stay fit or whatever that looks like for you. Thankfully, there was a bit of a move when Paris got signed as the Nike ambassador. So I'm not too sure what her take is on athletic care, but she got signed as the dance ambassador for Nike. So Nike are now taking us seriously, which is a big step, I think, for a brand like that to do something of that level. And now they promote like dance athletic gear in their stores, or like what dancers would wear, which is really big because they only ever sponsor sports athletes. So I'd say that because she's ambassador, obviously thinks certain jobs maybe that she does, I don't know, this is totally assuming, that are sponsored by Nike. Or like last year I had a really beautiful opportunity to go to her Nike Fashion Week show in Paris. And that was sensational. And she essentially just highlighted how much of an athlete a dancer actually is if you're at a professional level, and it was really cool. So I think the world is starting to look at it differently, but it just needs people to push the mark a little bit more and probably live the talk, you know what I mean? Like actually do the things that they need to do to be seen as the athlete that they are, rather than just dance and only dance.
Yeah. So if you were to have a perfect performance now, what would you do the night leading up to? If you have control of these variables, like you're not touring that night before, you're not with BLACKPINK, you just got one performance, let's say on a Saturday night. What are you doing Friday night? What are you doing Saturday morning, Saturday day, performing Saturday night? Yeah. And then maybe even Sunday morning. Give us a run through of like what would be the perfect dance, warm up, and routine, then day, and then like warm down, cool down type of thing. What would be the optimal Loren dance?
Yeah. So, funnily enough, I ended up being able to do this on tour last year. I got really specific about the way that I would control or like handle things I could control prior to a show. So ideally the day before I'd make sure that I was doing probably more specified work where I needed to, but the goal would be to make sure my body is rested and recovered and ready to fire on this show for Saturday or whatever.
So would you lift weights on that day? Would you take a rest?
I wouldn't probably lift weights unless I have an injury that I'm trying to prevent. So just making sure that like my joints are working and doing what they need to.
So would it be more rehab than a challenging workout?
Yes, I do more rehab or specific activation. So if I know that the show is full of me like jumping up and down like crazy, then I'm going to make sure that my legs are ready and prepared. So I would do a certain amount of resistance work, but I wouldn't be trying to push the boundaries or go to failure or do the things that could tire me out for the next day.
All right, Saturday morning.
Saturday morning, I would definitely do a full body stretch because dancers require a lot of mobility or just a lot of flexibility in their movement. I do a full body stretch that is like specific to what I'm doing in the show. So again, if I'm using my legs a lot, then I'm making sure my legs are really ready to go and they're going to be able to get into that position that they need them to without having to stress my muscles too much. And then I would have a big frickin' breakfast. That's always a thing in the dance world. Nutrition is really not talked about. It's like, especially we had a fad where female dancers needed to be like super skinny and slim. And so people just starved themselves to look good on a show day. But my goal has always and will always be to perform well. So I need to make sure my caloric intake is like matching that. So I always have a really big breakfast, do my flexibility routine. And then I would probably rest because we normally do have like rehearsals on the day of show. We would go in and run the show or run the things that need to be fixed for people or the artist or whatever that looks like. I always take my resistant band and my foam roller. The reason I take my foam roller habit is because we don't really have time in between rehearsals to properly cool down. So if I even get like a couple of minutes to do what I need to do to make sure that I'm providing my body with the right care, then I do so. And we're dancing on concrete and doing those things. So I'll take that to rehearsals and then I'll make sure I'm doing activations for the muscles that I need just before going into rehearsals. And then I go back, have a really good lunch. And then prior to the show, so just before we're about to go on stage, I'll do the same. I'll do like 10 minutes of activation, 10 minutes of mobility, and then I've obviously done about 20 minutes of warming into what I need to do. Again, it's all really specific to the movement. So I'm not just doing a random overall body warm up. It's going to be really specific to the movement I'm doing in the show and whatever I need. And then after,
Yeah, so
I never.
after
Sorry,
the show on the night, and then we'll talk
Yes.
about the next morning, if there's anything.
Yeah, after the show on the night, it depends on what that looks like. Sometimes you have to go to an event or an after party, or like you're required to quickly leave before the fans come out and they're crazy. But if I can, I will make sure that I do a certain amount of stretches, like even if I just get like a couple of stretches in to help my back, because I've had back issues in the past, or to stretch my legs or my calves, because I know that I've done a whole bunch of plyos the whole time. So I'll just do stretches where I can. And then if I'm able to get home in time, I will do a bit like a better stretch routine, and then I'll hop in the bath and like chill out and enjoy it and whatnot. And then the next day is full recovery. Like I'm not doing anything. I'm being lazy.
Just full chill.
Yeah, full chill. Unless I need to do some active recovery to flush my legs out, then I'll go for a walk or something like that. But it's definitely full chill. I want my body to like not be overstimulated. I want to calm down and prepare myself for rehearsals on Monday or whatever that looks like.
So let's also talk about this, because I've seen you post a little bit about it. What shoes are you going to wear? If you have control of the shoes that you're going to wear,
yeah.
Let's say BLACKPINK's like, you have to wear this, this, and this, but shoes, we don't care. What are you wearing?
True. Okay. What am I wearing? For me personally, right now, something with a higher stack, but because I'm recovering from an Achilles injury, so I need a bit more support on my stack. But even then, as a general dancer, I'd probably do some... Hang on, wait there. I'll get a shoe. Wait there. In terms of a stack, this is what I mean here. So the sole is just a little bit higher than a normal one. It's got some foam in it. This one's a nitro. So it's going to help me make sure I've got... Hey?
What brand is that? Is that
Puma?
Hey.
Yeah. Purely because I've got a friend who's sponsored by Puma who's a runner, and he suggested that I get these shoes because he also was going through an Achilles injury and said this would be good for like coming back from an Achilles injury if you're running. I use these for dance as well. So when I teach dance or am training in dance, I'll use a shoe like this. They don't like look as cool to dancers because dancers want to feel like they look cool to dance cool, which is very real. But I'm definitely at that point where I'm like, I don't care. I'd rather perform good and feel good and look after my body.
And you'd rather, perform better and look awesome on stage than have cool shoes but not be good at dancing.
Yeah.
So.
I do feel like, though, that brands like Nike and Puma and Adidas and all that are bringing out shoes that are providing what it needs to for an athlete, but also looking decently okay. But a shoe with a high stack, making sure that it fits me like nicely around the side, making sure that I just am not wearing shoes that are heavy and clunky. So these are pretty light. Otherwise, sometimes the heavier they are, the harder it is to get through your work during a show. You're obviously requiring more freaking energy and force to get to move your feet. That's what I'm kind of sitting with at the moment. I don't know any specific like shoe names. I mean, Asics have some really cool ones called Nova Blasts, which I feel like are an overall good shoe to wear. These are magnified nitros for anyone that wants to get them, and Puma's got a 50% sale on at the moment, so you're more than welcome to go and do that. Puma sponsor me because I just promoted you. And then Nike obviously have some really good shoes out there that support athletes that do a lot of plyometrics or endurance work, which would be what dancers would probably sit under. Yeah.
I've been rocking barefoot shoes.
I saw that. I wanted to ask you about that.
Seriously, I never thought I'd be one of these guys because they are the ugliest shoes in the world. I tell you.
No, but they look like they do what they need to do.
I'm wearing ones that are a bit more manageable, so I'm wearing them now. Hold on, let me take my shoes.
Yeah, go on, show me your shoes.
Let me just
Let's
get my
shoes out.
Flexibility. Hold on. Oh, so flexible. I'm just too motivated.
No, but so strong.
That's all that matters. What's your bench?
That's all that matters, mate. All that matters.
What's your bench press? That's all that matters.
That's all that matters. That's all I need to know.
Yeah. So I wear these. So these.
Yeah.
For me, so I got these for my birthday, I think.
Yeah.
From my wife.
Yeah.
And they've been a bit done for a while, but I got wide Maori feet. So the Kiwis will understand that Maoris, like, these are pretty worn, but like, well, not every Maori, but like I specifically have pretty wide feet. So
yeah,
if I wore a normal shoe that wasn't like this, so I have Nike. I've got I've got Nikes. I've got Vapor Maxes.
Ah, yes.
And they're super narrow. And they
Yeah, they
hurt
are
my
a narrow
feet after
shoe.
wearing them. And they're literally bursting at the sides here. Like when I'm wearing them, my feet feel like they're trying to escape
Yes.
prison. And then after after wearing them for a whole day, I used to do it on the gym floor as a personal trainer. 6 a.m. till 8 p.m., whatever, just wearing the same shoes.
Oh, no.
I'd actually have pretty sore feet. And I never really understood why. I thought it was just because I was standing all day.
Yeah.
But after I got these, and I've got no sponsorship alliance with these either, but they just feel so much better. And it actually felt like I was glued to the ground, a real weird feeling that I never felt.
Yeah.
Because my feet are actually able to spread out. So you feel like you have more stability.
Stabilized. Yeah.
Because before I was kind of like this, like walking around.
Like this, just everything crossing.
Yeah, if you can see the video, my hands are kind of doing what my feet were doing.
Yeah, I can.
If you're listening to the audio, it'll just be weird. But my feet were literally kind of like squeezed in. And then, this just feels much better. And I feel like these are the most appropriate to not look like a barefoot bastard, as I would say.
Yeah. Yeah, true.
Because there's ones where they have the old toe socks going on, and I cannot get on board with that. Like, I would never be seen.
You should. They look like they're real good.
I would never be seen in there, man. I'm just like, that is how you get negative sex appeal, man. Like, you just put your feet
Get your toes out. Get your fingers out.
In a glove, yeah. Like, I'd rather just wear no shoes than wear those shoes. But yeah, these are Primus Light Knits.
Okay.
And if you're a dancer, I probably, these don't look very cool. So, you probably wouldn't get much swag with them. Swag would be down to zero, but your feet would feel good. So for wide feet, I have those. Like, I think they're really awesome.
That's really good.
Yeah, and I'm about to get black in those. So tell me about, before we kind of start wrapping up, what you're doing in the dance strength and conditioning space, because I feel like I haven't heard much about it. It seems like a pretty niche area. And it seems quite untapped as well.
Yeah, 100% so untapped. Yeah, so essentially the goal for me right now is because I'm an S&C coach, so I do strength and conditioning specifically for dancers. So the goal for me would be to educate and instill knowledge basically around athletic care in the dance community, wherever that be possible, if that be in studios or when I'm talking to dance tutors or I'm talking to dancers in general that just attend classes or whatever that looks like. Ideally, I'd love to just help, probably more specifically the next generation that are coming up and wanting to pursue a professional career, and how they can actually look after themselves and how to have a sustainable long career. And so right now, the way that I'm working that out is I do strength and conditioning programs for professional dancers that are touring at the moment around the world. And I essentially just devise a program that works for them and what they're doing in a show, and making sure that they're completely looking after their bodies so that they're not injuring themselves or burning out too quickly, that they're being really smart about their rest and what they're eating and their, all the things that encompass being an athlete. And then ideally, I'd also love to be able to work in the dance community here in New Zealand. We have a big competitive dance community. So essentially, we have a lot of studios that have competition crews that work for 1 million hours a week to then go to a competition and hopefully get a medal. And they do that all year round. So there's probably a few competitions during the week that they're pushing for. And so hopefully, my nieces and nephews just arrived. It is gonna be chaotic.
All right, let's wrap it up.
Tell them, hey.
No, it's right. We'll quickly wrap it up.
Okay. Yeah, sweet.
Because
I'll just give them the whole please stay over there. Don't you dare come in.
Stay away.
Like, give me 5 seconds. I'll go tell them because I'll be able to stay in the other room for a bit.
Yeah, all good. And then we'll wrap it up.
Yeah, sounds good.
All right. Yeah. So while Loren is telling her nieces and nephews.
Oh, that is so funny. I love that. She was just about to tell off her kid for being naughty.
No.
Like, we're on a podcast.
You mother!
Just straight abuse in the background.
Yeah. You just see people getting thrown against the curtains. So, if there are professional dancers out there, so I'm going to give you 3 things, and then I want you to kind of wrap it up and tell people where they can go if they want to kind of message you and kind of talk about it if they are dancers or aspiring dancers. All right. So I've got a question for you.
Yeah.
Three things that you've seen with working with dancers that they overlook. So the most common things that they overlook. So just give me those and then pitch where they can message you, and then we're going to cut it.
Okay,
then it's going to be like, bam.
It's going to be like, bam, done. Get in contact. Three things that they overlook, definitely recovery or rest, whatever you want to look, however you want to look at that. So like sleeping, making sure that you're well rested in time for your trainings or for your shows or whatever you're doing competition-wise. In terms of like all they do is train, and the whole concept is like sleep is for the weak, which I used to live and breathe.
Yeah, me too. And also like, I know dancers love to dance and party, and that happens in clubs. So sometimes that is, that is not recovery. That is the opposite. That is the opposite of recovery.
The opposite of recovery, which is also very much the same. Because
100%.
There is something I do. Sorry. Okay, it's going to go for a little bit longer. I'm so sorry. Because the scene of the dancers too is that the management or artists or whoever is looking after us too, if you're in the professional realm, provide like VIP spots and clubs for us to go to just to like be wined and dined and enjoy a night out because they can. And so obviously that's a really awesome thing that people are providing for us, so why not go and have some fun after a show and you've just worked really hard for a whole week? So it's all real for that to be the case. It'd probably be, if you are doing that, then what are you doing the next day to make sure you're recovering in time for a rehearsal, or like just being smart about like how you can balance that out if you need to. But yeah, rest, sleep, recovery, that whole side of things is really overlooked by dancers. What else is overlooked? Strength work is overlooked because I think there is a general, I suppose, I don't even know what you'd say.
Misconception?
Misconception. That dancers would assume that if you do strength work, you get really tight and then you're less mobile for the actual movement that you're needing to do, which can be true if you're not doing all the other work on the other end, or if you're not training appropriately. So they tend to avoid strength work because they think that they don't need it. They don't understand that it's like super helpful for your body in terms of, the overall mass of force and looking after your joints and all that sort of stuff. So strength work is overlooked. Well, any resistance work, sorry, should clarify. And endurance training is overlooked too. Because, I suppose that depends. But if you are training full-time as a dancer and a coach is like, you need to get fitter and strong, you need to get fitter to sustain what you're doing in this 1 minute period. The way that they would approach that is like, okay, well now let's just train dance for like 20 million hours and we'll just do the same thing over and over again, which fair enough, that would work to a certain degree, but there's a point where it's not going to. And if you're not adding any other stimuli, then it's not really going to help.
Like you need to push beyond so that level of fitness that you need,
the threshold is pushed,
is already there. Instead of that being the top of your threshold, you want that to be maybe 80, 60, 50% of your threshold.
Yes, and it doesn't just look like you going out for a run, which is what the general public would probably know. But
and that's a lot of impact on dancers' knees too. So you'd want to look at. Actually, let me tell you how to... No, I'm joking.
Do you know what? Please. The more the merrier. The more information we can soak, the merrier.
Yeah, there is a lot of impact on the knees for dancing. That's one thing I know for sure.
Yes.
Not that I'm a dancer, but I do know a few. And running is just more impact on the knees and lower back. So, cardio could be good. It's not as specific to do something like rowing or swimming or using the elliptical, but at least it does get you that cardio workout.
Yes. But it's still, exactly that. That's also why when we talked about shoes, these are important because a lot of the time dancers train on concrete, like in rehearsal rooms or stages, we have concrete. So having a bit of a thicker foam, it helps reduce impact on those joints. It's really important. But being able to like figure out what type of endurance work they need. So even, like what threshold they're sitting at. So I feel like there's so many things that are overlooked, but they're probably
the three main ones.
Yeah.
And how can people reach out to you?
At the moment through my Instagram. So what is my Instagram? I should know this, guys, because...
It's something, isn't it Loren Kitto? LORENKITTO?
Yeah, that'll 100% be what it is, because I have that name now. It used to be Loren Sila.
Yeah.
But Loren Kiddo, yes, is my handle. Exactly what Brock just spelled out then. And then you can get in touch with me via my email, which is Loren, my first name, and then my old name, Sila, Sila, @hotmail.com. And then I'm happy to help out wherever necessary.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much. We're going to have to wrap it up there. It's been great to chat.
Yeah, thank you.
And I had your husband Jono on the week before, so that is getting edited. This will be getting edited, and they'll be going out bang, 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 back to each other.
Bang,
so
bang.
back to back. But I appreciate it. You know, it's been great to just build awareness around the life of a dancer, the awareness that dancers need and potentially don't have, and the room for improvement that they can have in their career. I feel like, you know, athletes get a lot of love, personal trainers and like influencers and all this kind of stuff. Like everyone's kind of talking about recovery and training and all this kind of stuff and rest with them. But with dancers, they're kind of just dancers, not just dancers, but like, you know what I mean? Like not seen as athletes. So they're like dancers, they dance and then they party and then they dance and party and you tour and it's that whole tour life, kind of similar to a musos. So it's cool to kind of bring that kind of like sports science into it and be like, well, this is, because they're like full-time athletes. You're jumping, you're moving, popping, locking, dropping. Nah.
Yeah, literally.
But you're doing all this stuff and it's super tiring on the body. So it's great.
Yeah.
I wish you nothing but the best. I
Thanks,
hope that everything goes well with the strength and conditioning, with your dancing and everything that you choose to pursue. It's been awesome to have you on.
Yeah. Thank you. Appreciate it.